Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Sean from Auto Anatomy. We've got a brand new project here on the channel. I can't wait to show you. Welcome back to Auto Anatomy. I'm Sean. With just wrapping up the Thunderbird project, we kind of left a hole here in the garage and been looking for something kind of different. You know, our theme is kind of bringing classics back to life, and classics can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't have to mean, you know, old like 1960s and 50s cars. Classics can be anything that is iconic or was special for the time. And I think we've got a special car here for you today. Before we get started, hit that subscribe button and click on the bell to be notified when any new videos come out. I appreciate it. So if you follow us on Facebook, I've posted a couple of teaser photos of what our new project is. And I'm happy to announce today that we picked up a 1980 Porsche 924 Turbo. For those that don't really know much about these cars, the 924 was introduced in the late 70s as a replacement for the 914. And, you know, initially they were a normally aspirated thing that didn't make a whole lot of power, and the Porsche community just kind of ignored them for the large part. But they were an important stepping stone because they were the first water-cooled Porsche available, and kind of a nice transition between the 914 and the 911 SC. When the Turbo came out, the Porsche community finally said the 924 Turbo is a real Porsche. It had good handling, it was front engine, rear transaxle. It made about 175 horsepower and only weighed like 2,800 pounds. So it handled well, it was pretty quick for the time, and they're kind of a rare car now. Not many of them were made, and probably even fewer survive. So the story on this car is that I bought it from a guy who purchased it out of Wyoming to make a race car out of it, never could get it running. But the last time that it was registered was 2006. So I think this car hasn't really been cranked up in about 14 years. And we're gonna try and get it running after that long with the K-Jetronic fuel injection. Let's cross our fingers. So thankfully the car came with a brand new battery, and he told me that he was able to hit it with some ether and it kind of fired up a little bit. So the first thing I think to do is let's just make sure it can even spin over. I haven't tried to do any of this really yet, so it came with a new battery. I've had it charging up for a while. Let's hook the battery up, turn the key, and see what happens. All right. Well, we've got some dash lights. Looks like we've got an oil light and some kind of generic warning light, and then the brake light. So we turn the key and the fuel pump kicks on. But it doesn't turn over. All right, so we've got a little work to do. He told me it did, so I suspect that we've probably just got a loose connection somewhere. Let's go ahead and start tracing the starter wiring down. Well, that might explain why it wasn't turning over. I'm going to end up replacing that. I don't like the way that feels. It's awfully loose, and that's going to come off again and leave us stranded. So let's get that replaced. And it actually looks like somebody has replaced this at one point anyway, so I don't really trust other people's work when it comes to wiring things. I've just been burned way too many times on that. Alright, so I'm going to have to end up pulling the starter to replace that wire. So in the interim, I just went ahead and crimped it. Let's see if that works. So something's happening. Alright. Okay, so it turns over. That's at least a start. Now to work on the real fun stuff, because unfortunately the fuel systems on these things are crazy. These have the old K-Jetronic things, which is kind of almost like a diesel system where it's a continuous fuel injection. It's not sequential, it's not pulsing, it's just constantly spraying as long as the engine's running. And I suspect that this thing has been neglected for some time. He told me it was last registered in 2006, so we're talking, 14 years of gummed up crap, probably in the distribution manifold, in the hard lines, and guaranteed down in the injectors. I think the first thing we should do is verify that we've got fuel to the distribution manifold from the tank, and then just start working through it and figure out where our problem is. Oh, well, there's gasoline. That's a good sign, I guess. Oh, yep, and that one's under pressure. So we've got gasoline to the distribution manifold. I wonder if we've got it coming out of it. Okay. Well, that's good news. That at least means that there's no gummed up fuel down inside of here. So I guess the next step is, let's pull the inlet off here, pull the injectors out, and see if those are clogged up. I'm going to run them through the ultrasonic cleaner anyway. Right now that the injectors are out of the car, you can really see just how filthy they are. So we're going to get these disassembled. These should just pull straight out of these little collets here, and then we'll replace the O-rings. We'll get them cleaned up first, replace the O-rings. But not only am I excited to get to work on the Porsche today, because I've been chomping at the bit trying to keep it a secret and not tell you guys, but it's also new toy day, because my old ultrasonic cleaner finally died. And I mean, I had it for, gosh, 10 years probably. And I picked this one up and just got it full of simple green, and I'm excited to see how it works. So we've got it set to, let's see, 80 Celsius, and we're going to run it for half an hour and see what it does. So I normally wouldn't change this out right now, but while the injectors were cleaning in the ultrasonic bath, I decided to go ahead and change the oil. And you can see up top there is the oil filter housing. But right now is a great time to access that O2 sensor. And since I already had another one on order, let's go ahead and pull this one out, get it changed out, and just check that off the to-do list. Alright, first run through the ultrasonic cleaner on the injectors and got them pretty good, at least on the outside. I think I'm going to try and blow through with some compressed air, because these things take something like 80 psi in order to open. Now, if there is one thing that's going to keep this car from running, it's going to be the fuel system. I think anybody that's ever worked on a K-Jetronic realizes what a pain they are. So I'm going to try and do something that I've never done before. I'm going to shove a piece of hose over this, and then maybe fill. Yeah, seems good. Alright, fingers crossed. I've got my safety eyewear on. Woohoo! That worked! Alright, let's try that again. Let's go to the next one. Okay. That one sprayed. Last one. So something's coming out of at least all of them now. I'm going to run them through the ultrasonic cleaner one more time just to get any last little crap out of them, and then I think we can probably get ready to put these back in the car. So look at this. There's trash in that one already. I think we need to blow out the lines before we do anything else. Okay, let's back flush all of these lines one at a time just to make certain that they are in good shape. So that's this one. Okay, that one's clear. Let's move on to the next one. That was number... This one's number 3. That one's clear. Moving on. Number 2. And by default, that's going to be number 1. Well, now that we've got all this blown out, let's get the lines hooked back up and maybe see if this will fire. It tried to hit, but just didn't want to yet. So I think once we get a little fuel in this girl, she's gonna run. Well, unfortunately, the starter is starting to go out, and I can only bang on it with a hammer so many times before it finally quit. Which means that I've got to put a hold on the first start stuff for just a little bit. I've got another starter on order, should be here in a couple of days, but in the meantime, I see a bunch of vacuum hoses that are calling my name. And you know, I learned my lesson on the Thunderbird. If you see an old vacuum hose on a car, just change it, because it's gonna bite you in the butt. It's not a matter if, it's a when. So let's go ahead and change out a few vacuum hoses, see if we can prevent some problems for the future. So these vacuum hoses are held on mostly with these, I think are called Ettinger clamps. Here, let's see if that'll focus here. Where it's a little crimp clamp. And considering this is plastic and I don't want to break it, the way that I do them, I get these off, is I'll take my bandsaw and just cut just cut the little tab off there. And now that those tabs are cut, I'll just take a screwdriver and spread these apart, which should free this up. Come off. Okay, with that out of the way, you can see here are the remaining vacuum lines, and I have no idea where they go. But, so that one goes to there, that one's disappearing off that way somewhere, and this one's going to the distributor, which this was the one that I thought I was just changing, but, you know, foolish me. Things can't always be that simple. And of course there's more, because why wouldn't there be more? Well, since the starter had to come out anyway, since it was bad, I figured it was a good time to replace those wires that I just, crimped earlier. But this is why I have trust issues with wiring. So this is a power wire that feeds like the cold start valve and the warm up stuff, and it is just bare. So I'm gonna fix that and see if we can not burn the car down before we've had a chance to drive it. With the starter out of the way, now you can see I've got the wires repaired. It seems like a good opportunity to also address the slave cylinder. When I bought the car, he said the slave cylinder was leaking, and I've got a rebuild kit for it. I don't think I'm gonna have a better time to take it out, so might as well just do it now. Well, I don't know if it was leaking, but pretty certain it wasn't working. This thing hasn't seen use in a while. I've got a rebuild kit for it. So let's get this thing apart, put it in the cleaner, see if we can get it honed out and working again. Look at this. Oh, that's disgusting. Pretty sure that quit being brake fluid a long time ago. It looks like that piston is probably frozen down in there. If you remember the Thunderbird video, one of the first couple I did, we rebuilt the brakes on it. And on that car, the pistons were frozen in the caliper, so we just used compressed air to pop them out. And we're going to do the same thing here. Let's see if we can make this work. Didn't take a lot, most of the time. After heating this thing up really hot and kind of basically boiling everything out of it, I got the piston to move backwards a little bit. So let's see if we can make it pop now. Okay, it moved a little. Okay, once I ran a hone down in there, this just popped right out. I need to get this in the ultrasonic cleaner, just get it cleaned up, and then I'll run my little brake hone down through here, get it all opened up again, nice and pretty. We've got a brand new rebuild kit from Porsche for the slave, and get it back in the car hopefully before tomorrow. Pulled the slave out of the ultrasonic cleaner, and it did a pretty good job. I don't know if you're going to be able to see down in there, but there's just a little bit of light surface rust, and I've got a brake hone that I'm just going to run through and clean it up. Get a little lube down in there. Let's see if I can do this. Okay. Got that nice and clean now. It's just a little bit of rust right here at the edge, so I'm going to take a wire brush, get all that cleaned out, run the hone one more time, run it through the ultrasonic cleaner again, and then I think we'll be ready to rebuild. And here's another little tech tip for you. If you go with your wife, significant other, girlfriend, whatnot, to, I think it's Sephora or Ulta, they have these little makeup trial brushes, and I usually grab 4 or 5 when I'm there because they do a great job for cleaning out little fine passages like this. So there is a benefit, guys, to going to the makeup store with your girlfriend or wife. Now that all of our parts are clean, let's go ahead and get started on the assembly process. Slave cylinders and master cylinders, all of them are just super simple. I mean, there's basically just a little piston with one seal on it, and this is the old one here. And whether this is a brake or a clutch, you know, master or slave, these are all super simple. So you just have the body where it rides, you've got a piston and there's a rubber seal. This goes, yeah, like that behind here, and then there's a plunger. So hydraulic fluid pushes on this side and pushes the plunger in and out. That's all it is. So when it comes to rebuilding one of these things, it's usually a lot cheaper than buying a replacement. And if you have a basic understanding of what's going on, these things are super easy to do. Okay, got all of our new pieces. And this is all that's in there. This is our boot. Let's see if we can get that slid on. Okay, I ended up having to put this in the vise and just press, but it just popped right on. So that part's done. Next up is our seal. Now, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this or not, but the seal has a little lip, and it kind of comes up and does this number right here, and that little lip is going to face the hydraulic fluid, so that when fluid pushes against the backside here, it pushes out and expands, so it seals a little bit. So we'll have to just get this guy over here. Finally got that on. You can see this a little bit better. You've got a little bit of a lip that comes up right here against the back. So next up, we're going to take some clean brake fluid and just put it inside here, pop the spring and then the piston in, and we should pretty much be done. Just get a little light coat there, put some on the piston as well, and you have to be really careful when inserting this thing to not flip that seal backwards. It's just a little light pressure. I guess it would help if I put the spring in first so I don't have to do this twice. All I'm doing is just putting a little light pressure on it and then tucking that seal in while keeping the pressure on. And as soon as all that seal gets tucked in, this thing should pop just like that. And it moves nice and smooth. Make sure it doesn't come back out. Then we'll put the new plunger, the new retainer on, and this part will be done. Okay, so I've got these 3 red wires that were hooked up to the positive terminal. There's 2 large red ones and 1 smaller red with a blue stripe. And unfortunately, they were just kind of sitting on top of the body here and not run through the hole that they're supposed to. So I have to extend them out. So I've got my 2 large red ones made, and then for wires with a stripe on them, since I don't have the ability to make a white, or excuse me, a blue stripe on there, I'll take some, whatever the color of the stripe is, and just put it as a little ring of different colored shrink wrap. So that way when I extend it, if this is all in a loom, which it will be, I can at least see which wire is which coming out of it. So let's get these soldered on and then run some loom and get it all cleaned up and see if that made any difference at all. Okay, got all 3 of my wires extended here, and if you'll notice, see if you can do this here, I put the splice in 3 different places so you don't end up with like a big bulge right there in that one one spot. But we'll get some loom on it and put some shrink wrap on either end of the loom. All right, and there's the finished product. So it doesn't look factory, but I think it looks good, it looks safe, and it's not gonna break down. And honestly, I think that's a good place to be. All right, more butchery going on. Someone had been into the harness, but I'm not really sure why. So when I looked at the main harness, you can see it's covered in electrical tape, and I found one ground wire that it looks like they jumpered around and ran through an existing hole in the firewall there, but I don't really see what they did, so I'm very confused. But I'm glad to see that the main harness is okay. And I'm just going to re-loom it and make it look a little nicer. Well, after about an hour of digging, I think I figured it out. So this is like a cold start valve right there, and somebody has like hot wired some random things to it, and I don't know why. And I started backtracking this wire, and it comes under the dash and went to this little spot right here. And I pulled this out, and I'm thinking this was like a little push button switch or something, where someone may have been trying to give this thing some more fuel. I don't think it was part of an alarm system, because it would only affect the cold start valve. So more undoing to come. Look at this. Somebody actually took the time to solder these things on. So it's like they did the wrong thing in the right way. I just don't understand. All right, so our new starter came in. Fingers crossed it's the right one. Looks like it is. So let's get it tossed in and see if we can start this old girl. All right, we're ready to put the starter back in. Before we do, I wanted to show you one thing. So here's the repaired section of wiring that goes down to the starter, and a little tech tip for any wiring that's outside of the car. I pretty much exclusively use marine shrink wrap, and the difference is, hopefully you can see that down in there, marine shrink wrap has like a little heat activated glue inside that when it gets hot, not only does it shrink, but this little goo comes out and seals it, pretty much makes it waterproof. So next time you're at Harbor Freight, pick up marine shrink wrap if you're doing anything outside of the car. Okay, fuel pump cycled. What? No way. No way. After doing a little more digging, I noticed that anytime that you plug in the fuel pump relay, the car turns off immediately. So I think we've got to shorten the wiring somewhere. I'm encouraged to see that it does crank up and run, and when it does run, it actually sounds really good. So I think the engine is in good shape. I think the fuel system is okay. Obviously we're getting spark, and I did go ahead and check compression, and these things only had like 7.5 to 1 compression. So I had about 90 to 95 PSI across the board, which is probably okay for this car. So the short answer is yes, it will run. I've got a little bit more work to do on getting the fuel system and the electricals kind of straightened out, but we're gonna have to wait on that one until next time. Thank you again for watching. If you like this kind of content, click on that subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when new videos come out. We'll see you next time.